What is up, everyone? I'm Rusty, your local laboratory maniac. This is Labman EDH, and I'm coming to you with another video I'm very excited for. But before we jump into that, I just want to personally thank everyone for the positive feedback I got from my first video and all the constructive feedback I had for it as well. It was the first time I ever made a video. Hopefully, I get a little bit better, but I never want to get perfect because the feel of my channel that I want is like you're sitting at the table at your LGS talking with your friends about your decks. Not everyone has an LGS, so that's what I wanted to provide for the community in this channel. So I'm so glad for all the views. I ended up getting like 40 subscribers for that first video. That blew my mind that I did. I'm so grateful. 40 people said, "Hey, I like what this guy's doing. He's rambling about magic incoherently. I like it." So I'm grateful. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let's go ahead and just get right into it. So this series, I know you saw the thumbnail. This series is about cards you could be playing. So my question to you, the purpose of all this is to ask you one question. Do you play these cards? If you do, you're a rare you're rare, okay? Because a lot of these cards, actually all these cards are below 1% of decks they can be in. So you're a rare breed indeed if you're playing these cards. Uh, I want this to be a series, so I'm starting from the beginning of Magic, Alpha set. Now, Alpha was released in August of 1993. Then it was reprinted into Beta and Unlimited. So this whole video is about that block of cards. And I'll include more recent images of the cards because they have more updated text. And when Magic updates the text like that, it's called an errata. And also, I'm going to include some Oracle text because some of these cards are just nonsense incarnate. So, and then when I was designing this, because I keep my friends in mind, especially the ones that are new to Magic, I want them to understand this video. So if I say Oracle text, they might not know. So I want to say what Oracle text is and where to get it. If you go to Gatherer, it's a Magic website. It'll give you the Oracle text. You just type in a card name in the search. I tapped Laboratory Maniac because we all love that card. On the left, you see the card image. On the right, you see the Oracle text. So, in layman's terms, it's what it does in modern terms. It's easier to read usually, especially for these older cards. Below that are rulings of these cards. So, if you have a question about the rules of a certain card, how it functions, sometimes in the rulings it will explain it. Now, for this first card, uh, I want you to think of this card's name. I'm going to give you the name. You picture in your head, close your eyes, picture in your head what kind of card you think this is. What color? What color? What permanent type? What it does? Okay, hold on. You ready? Island Sanctuary. Now, if you are thinking a white enchantment, you are right. I'd be surprised, but you are right. It's a one generic, one white enchantment. You may decline to draw the card from your library during your draw phase, and then you, in exchange, until your next turn, only creatures with flying and island walk can attack you. Now, this card is an older card, so it has upside and it has downside. I like those kinds of cards because you actually have to build so you minimize the downside and maximize the upside. So for this, you're not drawing the card. That is not great. And I think that's why people aren't playing it. It's only in 0.27% of decks. So that's almost nothing. And that's decks that it can be in. So decks that include white. The easiest way to minimize this is have a draw engine. Because if you have a draw engine, only creatures with flying can attack you because Island Walk is almost irrelevant in EDH. Some things have it, but it's almost irrelevant. So it can give you great protection. And now this is a replacement effect. So what that means is instead of drawing, you replace it with this effect. And for example, at the beginning of my turn, I decide not to draw. So only creatures with flying and island walk can attack me. I pass the turn. It's my opponent's turn. They play Dispel or something, or sorry, Disenchant to target Island Sanctuary to destroy it, they still can't attack you. If you look at the rulings here, in the middle one there, it says that, and that kind of blew my mind. I was like, I honestly didn't know that. That makes this card even better. It makes it so your opponent can't really do anything after you've activated this effect, even destroying the card. Now, what kind of decks like this? Uh, any decks that draw a lot. In my first video, I talk about one of my decks that the whole goal is to have a big hand. And how it has a big hand, it uses effects that let you draw extra each turn. Like how we call them Howling Mine effects. So it'll say at the beginning of upkeep, draw a card, or at your draw step, draw an extra card, or at your end step, draw a card. My commander lets me draw a card at my end step, so it minimizes the Island Sanctuary's downside. And that deck also has a fog theme, so it helps protect my life. So if it's perfectly, so I threw it in there. Another deck that would really like this is any Enchantress deck with white, which a lot have. Now, Enchantress is a term used for a creature that lets you draw a card whenever you play an enchantment or an enchantment comes into play. So you got Sithis Harvest Hand here, 1 green, 1 white, legendary enchantment creature, Nymph. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life and draw a card. It's a 1/2. So so you play Sithis, and then you play Island Sanctuary, lets you draw a card. Your next turn, skip your draw. Now you can't be attacked except with Flying Highwalk. Then play an enchantment, draw the card. So it's like you didn't lose anything. So those are the kinds of decks I think Island Sanctuary would be perfect in. So this next one, moving along here, is Copy Artifact. I have the Oracle text here. It says it's an enchantment for 1 generic, 1 blue. You may have this enter as a copy of an artifact on the battlefield, except it's an enchantment in addition to its other types. Now, this is actually, for the amount of mana this is, it's a really good card. It's only played in 0.84% of decks, and I think that's due to the price, because look at the price. It's about $70. Now, it's the lowest casting cost for a permanent straight up copying an artifact. So if you go and look, there are a bunch that do it, but none do it for 2 mana. Worst case scenario, you probably copy one of your opponent's mana rocks, but it's only costs 2 to do it. So you're kind of net and even. You're in a good range there. Also, it is still considered an enchantment. That is a downside because your opponent can now use artifact removal and enchantment removal on it. It does lose its color if that's ever relevant. Rarely is. And let's say you have an Enchantress deck, you want to throw this in. Even if there's no artifact in play, it is a May ability, so it would just enter the battlefield as copy artifact, basically doing nothing unless you blink it. What kind of decks like this kind of card? I have a deck based around the card Booby Trap, which is a 6 mana artifact. When it ETBs, you name a card other than a basic land card and choose an opponent. They reveal a card every time they draw a card. And if it's the revealed card's name, you sacrifice Booby Trap. And then if you do, it deals 10 damage to that player. The whole goal of the deck is play Booby Trap, see the top card of my opponent's deck, name that card, then copy Booby Trap, hopefully copy it 4 times, and then I just one-shot an opponent. It's very hard to do. It's a janky deck, but it's always fun. And then I have a Lazav deck. The goal of the deck is just copy everything. Everything you do, I'm going to try to copy. Hopefully you have good cards, and then I can profit. And Lazav's just a cool guy. He's in the Demir Guild. He's so chill. He's always sneaking around, copying people. It ends up doing nothing in the lore, but it's fun at least. It's like Arya from Game of Thrones. Does nothing, but is interesting. The next one is Siren's Call. It's a blue mana instant. It says, cast this spell only during your opponent's turn before attackers are declared. Creatures that active player controls attack this turn if able, and if they don't, and if your opponent controls them throughout the whole turn, they are destroyed. So basically, this forces your opponents to attack, and they can't do what every goad player hates their opponents to do in tapping for an effect, like an activated ability. Let's say you're facing a bunch of elves on your opponent's field. You play Siren's Call, they're like, well, I'll just tap my elves for mana so they don't have to attack and die. Well, they die anyway because they were on your field and they did not attack. It's not as good as Goad because they can attack you, so you got to be careful how you play this. It is an instant speed, force your opponent to attack. That will throw them off. So what kind of decks really like this? One that I saw while researching is Mave Insidious Singer. It's a 2 generic, 2 blue, legendary creature siren. Pay 2 generic and a blue, go target creature. Whenever that creature attacks one of your opponents this turn, you may draw a card. Now, you can activate that multiple times a turn because it's not a tap ability. You just pay mana for it. It is a 3/4, so you can go to multiple creatures, draw multiple cards. In the lore, I think it originated with Greek mythology where sirens are half woman, half bird. Obviously, Maeve is half woman, half tentacle monster, probably octopus. So not the same, but twice as scary, in my opinion. So they were seeing and lure sailors to their death. Now in Magic, there's 23 siren cards. You can make a siren travel deck if you want. Many focus on forcing attacks from your opponent and sometimes forcing blocks. And this represents manipulating sailors. Now, if you played Maeve here and Siren's Call in one turn or in the same game, I would clap my hands. That's impressive. You won the lore flavor of the day. Going on to the next one here, it's Sacrifice. Now, this one kind of shocked me. It's only played in 0.96% of decks. Now, Sacrifice is a 1 black mana interrupt, which means instant nowadays. They used to use the phrase interrupt instead of instant. You sacrifice one of your creatures to add to your mana pool any number of black mana equal to the casting cost of that creature. This is probably the best ritual in the game because sacrificing things is amazing in EDH. There's a lot of decks that want to do it and a lot of decks that want to mana ramp. Now, I use the phrase ritual. That just means that's a common saying people use. Here's Magic lingo number 1. In Magic, ritual is a term used for a card that gives temporary boost of mana, usually in the form of instant or sorcery. Origins of this term come from Dark Ritual, which gives you a short boost of 3 mana for the cost of 1. So you're netting 2 mana, which if you want a fast-paced deck, that is huge. Certain strategies prefer it, like Spellslinger decks that like instants and sorceries and profit off it. They'll use that instead of mana rocks sometimes. Now, so decks that really like this are creature-based black decks. The most common is Rats. I looked up mono black tribal decks. This had the most on EDH Rec, Maronar. It's a rat deck. So if you're in black and you need a boost of mana, like Maronar is 5 mana. If you want to get it out fast, you sacrifice a smaller rat and play it a couple turns early. Now, I also play in my John Aridicus deck. He's the Shattered one. He's 2 generic, 1 blue, 1 black, legendary creature, elf wizard. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent gains control of up to 1 target creature you control. You put 2+1/+1 counters on it and tap it. It's goaded for the rest of the game, and it has this creature can't be sacrificed. And then when they attack with a creature you own but don't control, that you get to draw a card. So it gives them something, boosts it up, makes it so they can't sacrifice, and you get to draw when it attacks. It's a 3/3, but basically I call this my Exorcist deck. I want to give my opponents demons that are boosted, and they can swing at my opponents for damage, which ends the game pretty fast. So I have Sacrifice in there for flavor. It also lets me cast my demons pretty early, and it's just flavorful because everyone's sacrificing things to demons. That's what people do in Magic. So I thought it was a shoo-in. It's only in 0.9% of decks. That is insane to me. This next one is Simulacrum. It's a 1 generic, 1 black instant. It says you gain life equal to the damage dealt to you this turn. Simulacrum deals damage to target creature you control equal to the damage dealt to you this turn. So it retroactively gives you that life back, which is great. So that's life gain, and it does damage to a creature. So those are the two things you want to focus on. So obviously, what kind of decks want this? You got your life gain decks like Aloro, Ageless Ascendant here. He's the 3 generic, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, legendary creature, giant soldier. At the beginning of upkeep, you gain 2 life. Whenever you gain life, you can pay 1. If you do, draw a card and each opponent loses 1. So a lot of these decks will have life gain doubler. So whenever you gain life, you double that. So if you get swung for 20, you play Simulacrum, you gain 20. But if you have a doubler, you actually gain 40. So that could be quite beneficial. And another thing is it does damage. So if you have a deck that wants damage dealt to you, like Brash Taunter here, he's a 4 generic, 1 red, creature goblin, indestructible. When it's dealt damage, he deals that much damage to an opponent. Then you can pay 2 generic, 1 red, tap it. It fights something. It's a 1/1. So, okay, you attack me for 20, I take 20. Okay, I play Simulacrum, targeting Brash Taunter. Does 20 damage to him. Oh, now he does 20 damage to you as well. So that's one way you could go about it. My friend played Simulacrum one day. I never had seen it before. It's the only time I've ever seen it played is by this guy. And I'm just like, that is an insanely old card. I love how it goes. I love how it is. Now, the next one's Raging River. This is probably one of the most flavorful and unique ones. It's 2 red. It's an enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures you control attack, each defending player divides all creatures without flying they control into the left pile and the right pile. Then, for each attacking creature you control, choose left or right. That creature can't be blocked this combat except for creatures with flying and creatures with the pile of the chosen label. So your opponents separate their creatures. And then you choose, because imagine there's a river, they separate one on each side of that river. Obviously, flying can go across the river, so they don't count. But if they have not all non-flyers, they have to choose, hey, I want half of them here, half of them here. And then you get to choose where all your attackers go. You don't have to choose. You can choose all one pile, which usually how this works, it halves your opponent's blockers and makes all your blockers favorable to you. Now, what kind of decks would like this? I will point out this is only in 0.04% of decks, but it is $67, and that's a lot for a card that kind of doesn't like it's more flavor than it is functional. So that's a lot of money for that. But I mean, proxy's like very cheap, so you can just proxy it. What kind of decks like this? I actually have a deck, Annex Hardened by the Forge. It's 1 generic, 2 red. Legendary enchantment creature, Demigod. His power is equal to your devotion to red. And then whenever he or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 red satyr creature token. That it has the ability this creature can't block. And if Annex had 4 power, I make 2 of those. Really, I just want to get as much devotion on the field and then swing it for game. Let's say they only have 1 blocker. You play the Raging River. They decide to put it on the right. Well, you just put Annex on the left, swinging it for game, hopefully, because it's a Voltron Beast deck that wants to do 21 damage to your opponent to kill them. So that's one way you could go about it. Another way, if you have a go wide deck like Krinko Mob Boss, it's a 2 generic, 2 red legendary creature, Goblin Warrior. You can tap it, put X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield with X's number of goblins. And it's a 3/3. Okay, so you make, let's say, easy make 40 goblins. We've all played Krinko decks. We all know they can make 40 goblins. Okay, you have 10 blockers. Now you have to half your blockers, and I swing in all in one side of the river with all my goblins. Now you can only block half as much as you normally could. And so it's just a pretty flavorful thing. I love that card. I love it in my Annex. It also gives them 2 power because of the devotion. So the next one's Smoke. We all know smoking's bad for you. This is kind of a stacks piece, which people also say is bad for you, at least for your friendships. So you got Smoke. It's a 2 red enchantment. Each player could only untap 1 creature during his or her untap phase. So let's go back to Annex here. I only want 1 creature, really, and that's Annex. I'm okay with only untapping 1 creature. If you're playing the Voltron deck, Smoke is amazing because it's only a benefit. It only slows down your opponents. Now, for whatever reason, I'm saying a lot of bad things about elves in this video. If you have Smoke out, your opponents can't be tapping their elves for mana because they'll tap them once and don't get to untap them again unless they only untap one per turn. So it really slows them down. So I just love it in my Annex deck. I got to play that Annex deck again. I miss it. I still have it. And his next one is kind of insane. It's called Camouflage. It's a 1 green instant. Now I have the Oracle text and the regular text. So I'm going to summarize it because it's a lot. So you can only cast this during declare attacker step. So you declare attackers, then your opponent declares blockers. Then you randomly assign those blockers to your attackers. And let's say you have a flyer and your opponent gets randomly assigned a non-flyer to block it, then the block doesn't happen. But really, this is just to manipulate blockers in a randomized way. Now, randomizing things, everyone will tell you, is not optimal, and it's not optimal for gameplay. But are you playing Casual Commander for optimal plays? You're playing it for fun, for interest. This is the most interesting card, I think, on here that results in the most interesting gameplay. And like I said, combat manipulation is always good. So this is only 0.01% of decks. Only 370 decks play it. And I think it's a reserve list card, so it is still $5. But what kind of decks would want this? Okay, I got a Virtus, the Veiled deck, and a Gorm, the Great deck. They're partners, so they're both the commander for the deck. A little fun fact, Virtus and Gorm are play on words for virus and germ. So you got Virtus here, 2 generic, 1 black. Partner with Gorm, Death Touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, they half their life, rounded up. So your opponent's going to want to block this because if they don't, they lose half their life. But if you play Camouflage, you can just say, okay, you have 1 blocker. I attack with Virtus and Gorm, and you are randomly in that situation, it'd be Virtus and something else because Gorm would force them to block him. If it's Virtus and something else, I swing with both, and they want to block Virtus. Now they have a 50-50 shot of losing half their life, and I think that's a more fair and fun way to play. Now Gorm, he has vigilance, and he must be blocked if able, and by 2 if able. And that has an interesting interaction with Camouflage, but I usually use it with Virtus and another creature. Gorm's just one of the partners. Now, on the original card, it says you put the cards in face down and then flip them face up, but you don't actually do that anymore. The Oracle text tells you that. So I actually saw this in a lot of Morph decks. Morph wants to flip things face up, but it doesn't work in there. So if you have it in there, I would recheck the rules because I don't think it works with that. Now, the next one is Instill Energy. It's a 1 green enchantment aura. Enchant creature. The creature can attack as though it had haste. It doesn't gain haste. It's just as though it had haste. And you can pay 0, untap enchanted creature, activate only once per turn and only during your turn. So this is only in 0.8% of decks. That's kind of crazy to me. It's a green card that gives haste. Very rare. I think there's only 3 other cards that do that. And it untaps stuff in green. I don't know how many. I only know, I think, 1 or 2 that will untap a creature in green. So what kind of decks want this? I actually have it in my Thrun deck. On the left is the Secret Layer Thrun, where it has him as an actual troll on the internet. You gotta love that. But a Thrun, the last troll, is a 2 generic, 2 green, legendary creature, troll shaman. Can't be countered, hexproof. Pay 1 color, or 1 generic, 1 green, regenerate Thrun, and it's a 4/4. So the goal of the deck is to swing in with Thrun, as much damage as possible. It's a Voltron deck. You want to do 21 damage. Now, if I give him haste, useful. Untapping him after he attacks, which is like pseudo vigilance almost, lets me block with him. And he's a great blocker because he's always going to be strong and he's always going to be able to regenerate. Now, another kind of deck you want to play this in is activated abilities. You got Garth One Eye, who's Woober Colors, legendary creature, human wizard. Tap it, choose a card name that hasn't been chosen yet among Disenchant, Brain Geyser, Terror, Shivan Dragon, Regrowth, and Black Lotus. Create a copy of that card of the chosen name. You may cast the copy. Now, and it's a 5/5. This is a nightmare for new players because they may not know what they are. But look them all up because they're actually all alpha cards in beta and unlimited. So this is actually the most flavorful card, in my opinion, for it. And then you got elf decks that tap for mana. The one I'll say something positive about elves finally. You use Instill Energy on Marin here, and you can untap her to tap her for more mana. You use that elf piggy bank. Now this next one is probably the most controversial one. It's Helm of Chazuk. It is a 1 generic artifact. Pay 1 generic, tap it. Target creature gains banding until the end of the turn. Now, if you're a new player, you're probably like, what's banding? And if you're an old player, you're probably like, what's banding? It is not used anymore. It's probably never going to be printed again. But let's go over what banding is. So here's a rules lawyer number 1. So banding is a keyword ability that does a few things. It allows you attack in a band. And can have any number of creatures with banding and one creature without attacking the band. So if you have 2 banding creatures and 1 without, all 3 can attack in one band. Now they're all if one of them's blocked, they're all blocked. Well, you're thinking that sucks. Why would I want to attack with 3 creatures that can be blocked by 1 creature? Well, if you're attacking or blocking as a band, you choose how damage is assigned. So let's say they have a 10/10. I have a 1/1 banding creature and a 1/1 non-banding creature. I swing in. Normally, they could probably kill both, but you choose how damage is done. So you can have all 10 damage go to one of them, letting the other survive. It's still blocked, but it survives. Here's another way that's beneficial. Trample is a May ability. A lot of people don't know this. Trample is a May ability. So you choose how damage is assigned. So you can say, oh, I don't let your trample go through. Let's have a little thought experiment here. Your opponent has a Blightsteel Colossus. It's a 12 generic mana artifact creature golem. Trample, infect, indestructible. It's an 11/11. I have an Elvish Mystic. You swing in with that Blightsteel Colossus. I block with Elvish Mystic. 10 damage tramples over. The infect gives me 10 poison counters, and I lose the game. Now, if I have a Baelish Hero, Benelish Hero, and it's a 1 white mana with banding. It's a 1/1. They attack with a Blightsteel Colossus. I block with a Benelish Hero, and they do all 11 damage to her, which saves your life for that round because it is considered a ban. You can also do the same thing. You can have the hero plus the Elvish Mystic, block Blightsteel Colossus as a band. All damage will be done to whichever one you want, which would make you survive. What kind of decks would like this? You got your Virtus and Gorm deck that I mentioned earlier. They would like it because, of course, yeah, go ahead. I'm going to attack with Virtus and another creature. You're going to block. I'm going to have all damage go to the second creature. Virtus is going to do damage to you, killing your creature. That's perfect. Decks that I call them enraged decks that want damage dealt to their creatures. I have a J'accused Levert deck that likes that. He's a 1 generic, 1 white, 1 green, 1 red legendary creature. All your green creatures gain +0/+2, and he's a 3/2. So I want to do damage to my creatures that benefit from it. So if I swing at you with 5 creatures with enrage, and you have a 5/5 that blocks, I do 1 damage to each of my creatures, and all of them will survive, hopefully, which will trigger a lot of abilities. You also want to play cards that use lure effects that make your opponents block, like Gorm. Gorm makes your opponents block, so you can benefit from that. Lastly, the last lore tidbit in this is you're probably wondering, who is Chazuk? He has a snazzy little helmet. He must be a really cool guy. Well, you're right. He's a rock star. Literally, only printed in a non-legal set from Mystery Boosters. It's a playtest card. It's not legal in Commander, okay? You can't play it. But ask your friends. They may like you. It says it's a 1 generic, 1 green, 1 white, Chazuk, Mighty Guitarist, legendary creature, human bard. It has banding. Creatures with banding cost 2 less to cast. And whenever 2 or more creatures you control can attack, when they attack in a band, Each creature in that band gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn for each creature in that band. It's a 2/2. I think this would be a great Bandy commander. I do have a Bandy tribal deck. I wish I had him in it. That would be amazing. So that's the end of this video. If you found any of these cards interesting, you want to play them, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what kind of decks you do play them in if you already play them. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, the like button. It just lets me know that I'm doing a good job and that you want me to continue.